Thanks, Eric, for the kind introduction. So that's a real pleasure to be here today with John and Karma for this project we are working on for about a year. So first of all, hi everyone, welcome. We have few important information before we start. The workshop has a website. That's a website, I put it on the chat already in Zoom. That's a website you can see on the right side of my screen, where you will have exercises for the first part, which don't require any programming experience. And then you get a POSIT Cloud link for the second part of the workshop, which will require a bit of coding, but that's here. So first of all, we designed this workshop to be really accessible to anyone. So you don't need to have any coding experience. That was one of the first, the primary target behind blockr. You might be an R user, right? And if you're an R developer, you might also extend blockr, which is the second most important feature of blockr. You don't need to be a developer, but if you're a developer, then you can improve its capabilities to help your organization with data analysis. I'm David Granjon. I work at Syncra in Zurich. It's a consulting company in Zurich for a year. I worked in the pharma companies before at Novartis. I'm also involved a lot in open source since quite some time, especially around our interface organization. Karma, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone. Thanks for joining the workshop. My name is Karma Tarap, and I work at BMS, Bristol Myers Squibb, as an innovation strategy and solutions lead. I can never remember the title, so I actually read it from the screen there. But I used to work at Novartis and at Johnson & Johnson as well.
And John.
Thank you. I'm John. I have done some work in the open source R world mainly, and I'm the co-founder of the Y company and OpEffects. And I've been working with Karma and David on this blockr project. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. So the goal of this workshop, if you're an end user, then the goal is to learn how to leverage blockr to create reproducible data pipelines without writing any code. And then if you're a developer, then it's to learn to empower your user by creating new blocks and make them available for blockr, also deploying blockr applications. So two different targets here. So that's the first slide deck. If you check on the website, on the main page, you have some introduction about blockr, prerequisite, the planning for today. So we'll start with blockr as an end user, then we'll have a break, and then we'll go in the developer part and we'll do some conclusion. And then if you go on the website and if you click on the links, then you will access the slides. So if you click on the blockr as an end user, you will get this slide deck I have on the left side. So let's get an introduction about blockr. So you probably know Shiny. Shiny is very popular to create a web application. It's cool because you don't need to be a web developer to create things with JavaScript and CSS and make everything interactive. So you just need to be able to write R code, and then you can do your applications, which has a huge impact in the pharma industry in particular, because you can share your analyses and make everything more interactive. The problem if you want to develop like production-ready Shiny application, that doesn't become so easy in the end, because you need much more than something, that doesn't require HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, but you also need to be able to manage your code correctly. And in the end, that's not super straightforward. There are commercial solutions to do data analysis. You may know Tableau, Power BI, which you can use to create some data analysis. But the problem is you have licenses cost to pay, which are quite expensive. And these tools, they are not really, we can't say they were developed for R, they are not R focused. like Chinese, for instance, which make them not the best fit to create visualizations. So that's why we developed blockr, and I will leave the floor again to Karma because I joined blockr 1 month after the project started. So Karma will give you like all the motivation behind.
Sure. Thanks, David. So blockr really was designed to help clinicians easily explore their data. So if you've got experience creating these data dashboards, I think you can appreciate that what typically happens is you start out with a data dashboard project with a very clear set of requirements. But then eventually over time, new questions come, clinical questions, or a new set of requirements come. And it essentially means that you need to now do something that your dashboard wasn't initially designed for. So maybe an example is you created your dashboard originally to use ADAM data, but then a clinician comes to you and asks, can you use SDTM because the ADAMs are taking too long? And this is not really an easy thing to do. But what if now they come to you again and they say, I've got some external labs data in CSV format that I would like to merge. Again, this is something that is not really easy to do. So if you have different data sources, what typically happens is you tend to have to program this data derivations outside of the application. But this causes quite a lot of friction for the clinician because now the clinician has to wait quite a long time for any change. It has to go through your development cycle again. And from the programmer's point of view, this also causes quite a lot of friction because now you have multiple code bases to manage. So the problem that blockr is trying to solve is how can we create dashboards or even data pipelines in a way that is much more flexible, but we put more of the onus onto the end user about the clinical questions that they want to ask instead of having it all like heavily baked from the start. So I'll pass it back to David now. Thanks.
Thanks, Karma. Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to give a citation from John here in the room. We were preparing useR earlier this summer for the presentation, and then I was asking John, what do you think about blockr is? And then if you ever use WordPress to create a website without having web development background, right? So you could say blockr is a kind of Shiny WordPress because you don't need to know Shiny to create interactive applications. And it stayed here because we all like a lot this citation. So essentially, to keep in mind, blockr is a supermarket for data analysis with R. The idea is you have some predefined blocks who are doing some things, and then you can just pick what you need, plug them together, and then create your data analysis. You don't need to write any code, right? That's a no-code dashboard builder. But, and this is where we really need to put the focus, it's extendable by developers. And in the end, if you put that together, it's really a tool that fosters collaboration. And to make it successful, you really need some communication between the end users and the developers. And in the end, something that's important for, especially in the pharma environment, it creates reproducible code. So you can export the code at the end of the pipeline and then rerun it independently of the Shiny application or whatever. Okay, so that was the little introduction, and now let's dive into how blockr works, how we designed it, and how you can use it as an end user. So I'm going to start with a simple example, the Palmer penguins plot. So the Palmer penguins, these are a data set which is provided for the RStat community. And we can ask the question, what penguin species has the largest flippers? And you can do that with ggplot, right? You would plot the flipper length as a function of the body mass, and then you can also make some categories with the species, with the island, and that's the plot you get. It's not extremely complex to do that plot, but if you don't have any programming knowledge, then that's still one step to reach. And the question is, how can I produce this plot? And should I also ask people who know how to do that to create it for me, and also to make it interactive ultimately? Because this thing is static. Then if you want to make it interactive, you would have to go through Shiny or whatever. So that's why we designed blockr. Blockr is really designed like if you think about cooking, when you want to prepare a cake or you want to prepare dinner, so you have blocks, and those blocks, they are instructions. And if you put all the blocks together, you get what we call a stack. And the stack is a recipe. It's a recipe. So from data import until data wrangling or some visualization. So you will start with a data block, then you do some transformation, and in the end, you have you get some result. We have different categories of blocks. Like I said, some blocks to import data. So you can import data from the data set.
No,
You
sorry,
can,
David, to interrupt you, but we're getting feedback from the chat. If you could zoom in on the left side of the presentation, they're having a hard time reading the screen. Thank you.
thanks. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah. So different categories of blocks to import data. So you can import data from dataset. You can also upload data from your computer. You also have what we call the file browser block, where you have some files in the file system of the application, and then you can just browse those files and select the data you like. And then we have some transform data that operate on the imported data. So you can do a selection, select column, filter, which is actually just doing deep layer operations, right? And then some visualization out of that, which can be a table, can be a plot, whatever you like. The blocks, they are provided by either us, the core team, or also by developers, like you will see in the second part. So you can think a block as like a little processing unit, which takes something as input, like an empty bottle. It has a collection of instructions, as you can see on the screen here, and then it returns something. Here it's a filled bottle, which can be passed to another block. In the end, it makes like a pipeline. So let's take an example of a transform block. So for the transform block, you need data from a previous block, right? Because you need to transform those data. So these are the input data here. And then you have some inputs which will provide interactivity of your block. So you can, if you take a select block, for instance, you would be able to select columns in your data set. So you would have one field where you can select the existing columns, right? And then all this is combined into an expression, which in the case of the select will do deep layer select, blah, blah, blah. And this expression is then evaluated to get a result. So you will get, you have the input data, and in the end, you get this input data plus a subset minus some columns which you selected in the block. And then you can pass this data to another block and so on. Okay, so gonna stop talking because otherwise it's going to be a bit long. And I just propose you to go to the first exercise. So what you can do if you are on the website, as I have on the right, you have a playground which is proposed by Shiny Live. So that was made with Shiny Live, which is like a really amazing tool to create exercises for workshops. So there was a workshop before on Shiny Live in the week. And then you have exercise 1 with the instructions, right? And then you will just have to follow the instructions to do the exercise. I don't know, Eric, if you are doing the exercise at the same time. Are you?
I'm working on it. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So L based, I will restart when you are done, basically. So
Okay.
we can.
All right. I think I was able to complete it. So hopefully the rest of the attendees here were able to complete that. If not, you can always put your questions in the chat. But so far, so good.
Okay, nice. Thanks, Eric. So just going to quickly do it again. So that's an empty stack here, what I was talking about. And then you have a plus button here, so you can remove the stack, which isn't really what we want here. Here, that's the stack, the button to share the code ultimately. So if I click on plus, then what I want is to select a block. So what I can do right now is only select data blocks. As I said before, you have multiple choices. You have some predefined data blocks, dataset blocks, which allows me to select a block from a given package. So as you see here, I can select BOD, CO2, and whatever. And the only interaction here is to be able to change the dataset. I can remove the block, and then there is another file browser block, which will allow me to select some files in the file system, or an upload block to allow me to upload some data in the application. I won't select this one. I will select the Palmer penguins as in the instructions. And yeah, as you see here, yeah, you get you can select two data sets. So we'll keep the first one. And then you get a preview of the data with all the different columns. You get also indication on the top, how many rows, how many columns, which is useful when you are doing some filtering operations. For instance, if you really want to know whether your filter worked. The next step, I'm going to use a filter block to filter rows in a table. I get some feedback here. It says I have an error in the block, right? Because I need to select one column. So that's why I don't really see the data. And then I'm going to select only females, right? So I have the choice here. I can also select different, start with. I can also do some regex and other things. And then I press run. And you see I get less rows than before. The next step is, so I can continue with my transform block. I'm not able to add a new data block, right? Because it's not compatible with what I'm doing right now. Two choices, either I add a transform block or I do a visualization. I'm going to choose the visualization as in the text. And then I can select X and Y. So what we had in the first slide, I think we had body mass, and then the second one was flipper lens, something like that. That's not super important. What's important is really to understand how to add blocks one after each other. And then the only thing I can do after that is creating, adding some points to the block. And then, yeah, I will leave it unchanged. And I get the same plot as I had in the introduction. The only thing is I didn't need to code anything. I didn't need to do anything else. And then I can also remove the blocks as I did before and then redo my analysis. I can change if I like here, I can filter for male, and then I will get my analysis updated from the filter block until the visualization. And then if I want to get the corresponding code, then I copy the code here, and then I will go to my IDE.
Do you mind zooming in on that font a little bit when you go to the ID next time?
Yeah,
Okay.
the thing, I don't think the copy and paste works for me because I still get the link which I copied in Zoom. But you can try yourself if you do it. Yeah, it should work for you. But
Might be Shiny Life that breaks it.
yeah, it could also be something with the slides. Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, that's theoretically you don't create blocks in the slides, right? That's just for the for the presentation.
I had a quick question, if you don't mind, for those that were following along, and maybe they did the wrong order for a couple blocks. Is it easy for them to rearrange them after the fact, or do they have to delete them and add them again?
Right. So now we don't rearrange with drag and drop, right? You have to basically remove all the wrong blocks and
Okay.
recreate them. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
The copy code worked on my end, so hopefully it's just an issue for you, David, and it works for others.
I think it's on my side. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move a bit forward. The question now is how much code would it take with Shiny? So I told you this part is really, you don't need programming background, right? But just if you look at how much code you would need to create the same application with Shiny, but it's not really a extremely complex Shiny app. So the code is a bit small, but what I just want to say, you still need to write like 40 lines of code. In addition to that, if you change the data, you would need to rewrite the entire application, which doesn't happen with blockr. If you change the data, basically all the downstream blocks they get updated. And if you have like incompatible column names, because if you start with the penguins data and then at some point you go back to the empty cars, right? You don't have the same column names. You will get feedback from blockr that you need to update the column names by changing the inputs. And then that's for blockr developers. That's the corresponding application. That's the corresponding blockr code. So you load blockr, then you create a new stack. And this stack will be composed of four blocks. The data block, which selects the penguins dataset from the Palma penguins package. Then you get a filter block with sex, female, right? Then you get a plot block with body mass, flipper length, and then another block for the points. So you create the stack, you import the data, create the plot, add the layer, and then the serve stack just returns the Shiny application. And this thing here, this 8 line of code, they can be hosted in shinyapps.io, can be hosted on Shiny server, Posit Connect, wherever you like, because it's a Shiny application in the end. And if you're a developer, then you host this application and then you can tell your users, then now you can use this tool and you don't need to code anything. Okay, so that's the second exercise. Now we move a bit closer to the pharma data because the previous example was just like the meat data. Now it's it's quite simple, right? It's a distribution of age in the demographic data set. And I don't know, John, do you like to do the interactive demonstration right after?
Sure, let me prepare that on my end.
Okay, so I will stop sharing and then so let's also give Eric time to complete the exercise.
Yes, I'm learning along with all of you. So again, don't hesitate to put questions in the chat as you're working through these exercises as well. You can see I was already trying to break something. So this has been fun to learn. Well, while we're waiting for me to finish, there's a question from the chat here. First, I'll put the links in and get them, but Kenneth is asking, does hosting the app with GitHub Pages via Shiny Live require the data to be uploaded too? They're assuming the answer is yes, but they would like clarification on that.
So yes, what you see here, they are like, if you put it on Shiny Live, like I did, all the data, they are in the browser. So that works well for this workshop because I don't have sensitive data, but in practice, you wouldn't do that. Yeah, you wouldn't put it on Shiny Live, yeah, because everything is really visible to anyone. I'm pretty sure in the previous workshop, they really mentioned that you don't put sensitive data credential to Shiny Live. Yeah.
All right, I was able to successfully complete this exercise. One pro tip that I learned just going through these two is that in the first or the second step, technically after you hit the plus, when you're doing the custom data block, make sure you actually, collapse the sidebar again so that you can choose that data set before you go to the next step. Because I got too greedy. I kept the AE data set selected, so I couldn't find age, and I'm thinking, what's going on? Then I had to go back and do it. So just be diligent about your clicks, then you should be fine.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay.
That's super nice to also hear your feedback as a user in live. Yeah. I'm gonna stop sharing, John, if you like
Yeah,
to do the demo. Yeah.
of course. What do I want? Desktop 2. I'll assume you can see my screen. You tell me if you cannot.
It's looking good to me. Yep. And
Lovely.
those in the chat, let us know if it needs zooming in or not, but it looks fine on my end.
I can maybe demonstrate a bit what you shared to, sorry, what Eric mentioned. So if we click on the plus sign, again, so we have the stack representation here, UI representation. We click the plus sign to add a block. What we have to add is a custom data block. When I click on it, you see that nothing, we update everything, but we don't close the sidebar. I think that's what Eric just mentioned, might lead to a confusion. If I go back up here, we can see what I have to do. I have to add a ggplot block. So after this, I can add my ggplot block. It adds it in the background. It doesn't close this again. And I think that's where, as Eric mentioned, if we, scroll back up, look at the exercise, we're now at step 3. I want to add age, right? I want to have age on the x-axis, and in here I can't see age. That is because by default we had the first data set here selected, but we have to select demo. But it's also what it's a good issue to have in a sense, because it demonstrates a bit something that's quite powerful, I think, with blockr. Is that when now I change this over here, all my inputs below are going to be updated accordingly. So here I can collapse this, and now over here I should see age. And that's one thing that if you know how to write Shiny application, you can think of how that would work. It quickly becomes very cumbersome to code these sort of things. But with blockr, it's fairly simple. So once we have that, we can add our histogram. If I go here, geom histogram, I think we could play with some things over here, but I believe, yeah, I might have made that very ugly here. No, not this. It's an issue, hopefully on my end. I have to refresh. Apologies. Will we do that quickly?
There was a little nuance that I want to call out is that as you're going through these blocks, if you realize, oh yeah, that previous block, I forgot to change an option, you don't have to destroy everything to get back to that. You can hit that little caret icon on the right sidebar. It's kind of like I guess a drop down kind of icon to go back to that without having to recreate everything. Because as you said, the downstream blocks get re-updated with that, say, new data set that you select. That was another nuance that I just learned.
Yeah, this is one thing that's that was quite, if I remember correctly, a bit difficult to implement. Because if you can think of how you do it with a Shiny app, if you change the data somewhere, then you have plenty of inputs to update, and it's a bit tricky. So that's where I was. Geom histogram, we're gonna leave it as default, and then I believe what I have to do after that is maybe yeah, one exercise 2, so apologies. We can add labels with the labs block. I think here I have age. I'm gonna keep it simple and short. Oh no. I keep having this issue. I think it's exacerbated. I'm sorry, maybe I'll have to restart that. I'll try and be quick. I apologize.
Otherwise, you can just remove the last block. I think it will work
True,
also.
that'll be
Yeah.
faster when I get this. Well, custom data. Here now we have our ggplot. We select the age. On the x-axis, we're gonna add the histogram, leave it on default, and then we can add the labs block. So here we have age. Here, what did we put on? That's just the count. And then on the title, we're gonna have, I'm just gonna put distribution. I can't remember what the exercise wants me to type. And then essentially, well, we've got a valid plot, but maybe not very pretty. So we can add a theme and then scale the color. So if I add theme, I don't know if there's a specific one that looks good. I'll admit I don't use ggplot as much as I should. Theme classic like so, and then apologies, scrolled up too far, and now we can scale the fill color. But I don't see it scale. Will it scale if I didn't specify any fill? The fill is hard coded to blue in my geom, right? So I don't think the scale will fill. It's not really a blockr issue. It's an issue in
That's a
our
GG
logic.
plot. Yep.
It's an issue in our logic and how we're trying to build the plot. So the scale, because it doesn't scale according to a variable and it's a string, it's not going to work. In any event, sorry for the few issues I ran into too fast on my clicks sometimes.
As you were working through those labels and you're changing like age and count on those, under the hood, are those using things like Shiny the bounce to make sure that as you're typing, it doesn't like refresh everything so quickly after like a key press?
Kind of. It's
Okay.
one issue we have right now. That is, it is debounce because it's the default Shiny debounce. I think it's a text input which is debounce.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
But despite the problems that you are able to recreate the plot right quickly, right? That's the advantage also. And then you also learn how to use blockr. And obviously, what John showed is what is available in the application is what was made available by the developers. Specifically here, it's when we prepared the workshop, we made those blocks available. So you only get a subset of existing blocks, but you may imagine having 300 blocks, right? That's why you get a search field in the sidebar. Because if you have too many blocks, then you can't scroll down to the 300 blocks. You would have to type the name of the block, and that's something you can do with blockr. So that was like the getting started, very simple, just one stack, but you can't go very far with one stack. What you ultimately want is to organize like a sort of dinner party with multiple recipes, multiple stacks, if I can say, and that's the workspace. Yeah, so that's where we define the workspace. So the workspace is kind of multi-stack place. So you have a stack which goes from input, data import until data transformation, optionally visualization, but you could also say I want to finish my stack by just data manipulation. And then you want to feed this data, this transform data, into another stack, right? And then will come stack 2, which takes stack 1 as input, transform those data, which produces new data, and then you can reuse those new data into another stack and so on. So that's where it becomes like the power of blockr, is you can really combine all those stacks together and create a modular data analysis, because you don't want to have a stack where you have 25 blocks. That's what we, after like playing quite some time with blockr, we realize it's maybe better to have stacks with 5 to 6 blocks maximum, right? And then create another stack where you do your other manipulation and some visualization. Otherwise, yeah, if you have 25 stacks, if you need to change one block in the stack, it's not super convenient right now, even though it will be optimized in the future, but yeah, it's not just a best practice, I think. So here it's still an exercise. So it's better if I switch to the playground, which is also a bit larger. We'll play with the Palmer penguins. So that's still using the data from the first exercise, except that this time we will have the data manipulation in one stack and the visualization in another stack.
All right, I think I'm mostly done. I will make a note. I'm not sure whoever's experienced this. It may be a shiny live issue. Sometimes the spinners just kind of keep going on some of these blocks for sort of some reason, but I'm able to at least get up to the ggplot block successfully.
Cool. Might give people a few minutes or seconds and answer a question that's in the
Yeah, we
chat.
can answer a question while we're waiting for that. Sam is asking, do you recommend bundling, say, custom blocks together as an R package for maybe distribution or sharing?
So I'll take the question. There's a new question since then from Jeremy on how do I change the title of the stack. I'll answer the
Sure,
questions in reverse order because
Sure.
it's simpler. So I think normally to change the title of a stack, you just click on the title and it should trigger into an input. You can change the input and then save it. Then about recommending bundling custom blocks together in an R package. blockr is very young, so difficult to arrive at kind of recommendations as to how we should use it, but it's certainly how we've been approaching this. We have quite a few custom blocks that we're building for Bristol Myers Squibb, and everything is in separate packages. And we have different packages for which tend to prefix them with blockr, and so you have blockr.ggplot2, blockr.this, blockr.that, and we kind of wrap our packages and their functions into their separate, corresponding blockr packages. So I hope that answers the question. In short, yes, that's certainly how we do it.
And yeah, right now the blocks, they are really package oriented. So if you have ggplot, you will have the ggplot vocabulary, right? Geom point, geom histogram. But you are totally free to create more user-friendly names, right? Something that really everyone can understand. Because if you don't even know what is ggplot, that also might be just a step to know what is a geom point, what is a geom histogram.
I think there's also the thought of if the point of creating the custom block is to share it with others, then the ideal way to transport any kind of R code is really the R package, and it kind of naturally makes its way into an R package.
Okay, so maybe let's do it again together. So that's the third exercise. I already have one existing stack. So that's something that can be done by developers. I will show the slides after how to make that. So I get a predefined stack here, which contains the Palmer penguins data. And then from that stack, what I do is I add a filter block and I will filter for female data. So as I said before, if you have too many blocks, I don't have so much here, but if I type filter, I will only get the filter block in the search results. I will select the sex here. I want to have females. I click on run, and that's my first stack. Then I need to create another stack with my visualization, right? So I'm going to click on add stack. And here I can just say like data. And the second one, I will say it's a plot, right? Then the next thing I'm going to do is to add a result block. So the result block appears in the data category because that's something to import data, not data from a package, not data from a file, but data from an existing stack within blockr. And then if you have multiple stacks, then you will get multiple stuff. So here I select the data stack here. And then I will add my geom point. My ggplot, sorry, with the right elements, body mass, maybe build length or flipper length. So redo it again because I also had some troubles. Body mass, and then flipper length. Okay, seems to be good now. Adding the points, and I get my plot. And at the end of the day, I just collapse. If I collapse my stack, I get the latest output visible. I don't get the previous blocks, right? If I uncollapse it, then I get all the blocks and I can see it. But when you want to create a dashboard, you want to just see the final result. You don't want to show the intermediate elements. So that just shows you how to connect two stacks together, how to be able to compose. And then in the end, I can also create another stack. You can save the entire workspace here. If you click on save, you will be able you will get a JSON file, and then you are able to restore it when you rerun it again. Code-wise, just to show you for developers how to create a workspace, so that's not very complex. You just call blockr set workspace instead of set stack, and then you create as many stacks as you like. You can also leave it empty, right? And then you serve the workspace. And that gives you here two empty stacks. And then anyone can do anything with the two existing stacks. That's still a Shiny app, which you can deploy to whatever hosting solution you like and let people play with this application. All right, and we will end up this part with a bit more complex example with pharma data. So we'll be connecting two stacks together and we'll play with, oh no, sorry. Yeah, we'll have a first exercise about joining data, because you can connect two stacks together, but you can also have, you can perform some join between with the data, because you have a join block within an existing stack. I don't know, Karma, if you like to handle this one in the end. Perfect. Yeah.
Perfect.
I will admit this one I have not been successful with, but I'll be curious to see the walkthrough because I am not able to complete steps 3 and 4
There's a
successfully.
typo in the other exercise. So this one here shows it. So the custom data you need to select is with a demo, and you need to join with the lab data.
Oh,
And
you're
the
right.
other one is
I was
the lab
looking at
data.
the web page. Thank you for that. That should fix it. Okay, I was able to with that hint, I was able to complete it. So hopefully the rest of the audience has been too.
Yeah, so sorry for the typo. Yeah, the real instructions, they are here on the
Yep.
slides. Yeah.
Thank you.
One on in the accordion is actually missing the first data. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing, and then Karma, you can go ahead if you like.
Okay, so we're going to start by adding a stack. I just need to move this a little bit. And then from here, we're going to add the custom data block. And then we're going to select the demography data set. And so now we have our demography data set loaded. We will now add another stack. And I think at this moment, this is coming to the bottom. We've got this called data, that's good. And now we're going to look for the join block. Well, I think we need to use a results block first. And then a join block. Okay. So here now we're going to think of all these different things. So if you don't name your stacks, you get this, which is a bit difficult to use. But let's merge it by subject ID. So you should now get a data set that looks like this. I think, that might be the wrong data set.
I think there should be 2 stacks.
And there should be a lab data stack, right?
Yeah.
I was able to select that when I completed it.
The first one would have the lab data, the second one would have the demo data, and then an extra block with the join.
Oh, I think I
Because
know
here
what
you have the first stack with the demo with the demographic data, and then
I
you've
think
got
loading those
the second
demographics.
is the result stack, so it's also the demography, so you're joining demography on itself.
Yeah.
So you need to remove all of that now.
No, you're right. Sorry, I've done this thing.
That's fine.
Let's remove this data set. Okay. No. No, that's the first one. I'll remove this as well. Okay. I think I've just started all over again. Okay, that's fine. Cool. So let's stack. Okay, and custom data. Demo. I'm going to add a new stack. This one we're going to add the labs data. And now we do the join. Okay. So the way that I typically do it is I just try it and then I look at the variables. So here you can see that's done it correctly because you're seeing the labs data with no dot syntax. But you'll also, if you scroll across, you'll see the demographic parameters. So if you know the data, it's quick to check if you've done it correctly.
Yeah, it's an issue we're working on to fix, actually. It's when the drop down, when you select the stack, we want to display the stack title instead of where you see the kind of gibberish ID you see is the internal stack ID, but that's something we're working on improving. So that when you left join or when you have a result block, you can select the appropriate, stack.
I think the scroll window in Shiny Live is really wide.
Yeah,
I noticed that
I've never
too.
seen that. I've never seen that before. It's really a Shiny Live kind of byproduct of them.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so hopefully
Thank
that
you.
was simpler for you. Yeah, but this is like the ability to join within a dashboard is extremely powerful. And so we get asked to because you never know how the end user wants to pre-process the data, and being able to load CSVs and merge them on the fly while still having access to the predefined visualizations that you've created is pretty cool. David, shall I hand it back to you?
Yeah. Thanks, Yarma. Yeah. Okay. And after this second exercise, then we have a last exercise. So that's a lot of practice, but I think that's better than talking for like 2 hours about what blockr can do. It's better to see it in action. So in this exercise, you will be considering the two previous stacks, which are actually merged in one. It's called hemoglobin data, right? Everything was prepared before. And the only thing you have to do is create a new stack which will contain the visualization. So you will create a result block, which is using the data you see, and then adding a plot, points, error bars, line, labs, and optionally a theme.
I would just like to add that we're being a little bit mean to you here by making you build like everything up here. In reality, what we will have is you'll have functions or blocks that will do most of this. So if you think of like in a clinical setting, if you need to do a waterfall plot, you'll have that. And you still have the power then to add like a new theme or a new GM point. So you typically wouldn't be expected to use blockr in this way. But it's really just to show you that you can start from primitives and build some complex stuff if you want to.
Yeah, that's a very important remark, Karma. Yeah, thanks. Really, we show that blockr is flexible to go really to the layer of ggplot, but you could also create a super block which just creates everything, the ggplot, the points, the labs, so you don't have to add them one by one.
So speaking on mute, I'm getting some artifacts from Shiny Live, I think, and I can't add a block to this stack, David. If you click the plus sign, does it list blocks on your end here? Yeah. I'm unable to add blocks here. Don't know what the reason is.
I have the same problem.
So far, I've been lucky. I've been able to add the blocks up into the ggplot step now. So obviously, your mileage may vary as you're running this on your local machines.
Yeah, locally it should work. It really seems Shiny Live is.
Sorry, I was on mute too. Yeah, no, not right now. We can't read in the middle of the stack, but we were thinking about that, giving this option instead of reading at the end to be able to read at any time, any block. There might be a solution, but yeah, it's not yet in the code.
Just a note for those following along. I notice that when I'm entering the labels in the free text fields, maybe it's my issue, but sometimes the cursor will just kind of randomly go to a different spot as I'm typing, and it's kind of mangling the text a little bit. So when you get to like the titles, so just be wary of that if you're typing in and suddenly it's like you moved your characters in a different place. So just be wary of that. And one other question for me, is it normal to have the spinner just keep going on some of these blocks even after you've completed it? Like what you're seeing there on your
No,
screen?
it's an issue. It's a bug. It's a
Oh, okay.
it's a very recent bug. It's we added the spinner. You had some blocks that were computing, very long running stuff, and so we added a spinner. And well, we did manage to add it, but we can't remove it now. So, but
Got it.
it's
Yep.
it's a known bug.
Yep. Jeremy's asking, is there a way to hide the first table as you're going through this exercise when you get further down.
Ah, you mean hiding this one here?
Yeah.
Not right now. As I
Mhm.
said before, when you collapse or uncollapse the stack, then you see only the last block output. So you will see the table.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. Never considered it. Maybe we might, but I never considered not showing the output of a stack.
Are you done, Eric? Or should
I am.
we?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So let's do it together again. So yeah, we have the hemoglobin data here, which are actually this thing here is should be composed of like 10 blocks to obtain this data with summarized, group by, arrange, and different things. So I'm gonna add a result block. I'm going to call this stack a plot, and then adding some ggplot. X should be visit, Y should be mean. Then I need some points. Where I have two functions already. I have shape, color, so you don't need to change anything here. The only thing you need to change is changing the variable name. It should be actarm here. Then adding the error bar with ymin, ymax, and the color to actarm. Ymax, ymin, and actarm. Then adding some line. And like Karma said, you could definitely create a block that does everything for you instead of having all those steps. It's just to show you like a demonstration of adding the blocks one by one and what you can do with them. But you could definitely have something that goes even faster. Yeah. And the line should be, I said before, actarm. So here you get your plot, and then you can edit the tab if you like. You can edit some labs. Okay, I'm just going to collapse the stack. Yeah, that's the plot you get in the end with all the different options, the point lines, the theme, and the error bars. Yeah. Okay, so that leads us to the question, how far can we go with blockr? The problem is the blocks, they don't come by magic, right? Someone needs to develop them, and that's how we do the transition to the second part, which really concerns blockr for developers, because someone needs to develop these blocks. To show you some examples before so we are going to have a break now for 15 minutes. But before the break, I'd like to show you.
Maybe just before that, there are questions again in the chat. I think we have not answered yet, David, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Any idea how does blockr knows that the result block is called HB_data? I'm not entirely sure and fully understand the question.
If I can restate, I believe when we were getting to that step of doing the ggplot block, it somehow knew that we were going to use that HB data block as a source. I think they're wondering if that's something that was pre-baked in to this demo, or does blockr somehow understand what this should be named instead of that cryptic name that we saw in some of those other choices.
Yeah, when you create the HB data in one stack, right? And then on the other stack, you will create the result block, which returns data, and these results, just import the HB data. And these data, they are passed to the ggplot function. So ultimately, it's just piping the data into the ggplot function.
So
So you don't
the
need to
name
worry about
is
that. Yeah.
oh, yeah, so the name is like akin to the data that was being fed into it, if I'm understanding.
Yeah. The name is really
Got
to
it.
help you to select which stack you want, right? Because as you see before, if you get the IDs, fancy IDs like XXS, YWW, you have no idea which stack you refer to. Yeah.
Great, thank you. There is a follow-up on that one. Jeremy's asking what happens if I add another stack with the same data set, which would be HB data, and then do another filtering. If I create a third stack, will it confuse blockr to know which of those HB data blocks to take, if that makes sense?
So assuming you want to name two stacks, you want to give stacks with the same name, right? So you would have two stacks with the same name and the third one, which wouldn't be able to know which one. So we are actually revisiting the results field, as John said before, to display correct names. So we also have a filter within the dropdown. So a stack cannot select itself, which makes sense, right? And you also can't select let's say if you have two stacks which are named, you can't name two stacks the same way, right? You will have something to prevent that.
But do we? That's a good question, though. I'm not sure we have that in place yet. That's something
No,
that
it's
we
not in
don't
place.
check.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't check that. It's a good point. I didn't really think of it. But we currently at least don't have a check on whether on ensuring that stack titles are unique across the workspace. So you could have two stacks with identical names, and then indeed in a dropdown have an issue as to understanding which stack is which exactly.
I think the only thing why it works now is because we combine the stack title with the stack ID, and the
That's
stack
one way
ID
we
is
do it.
unique. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could have the same title, but the ID will be unique in any case. That's always true.
Yeah. Well,
All right, so I think you were mentioning earlier, is this a good time for a break or should we do
Yes,
next?
yes.
Okay.
It's time for 15 minutes break. Yeah.
When you are.
Okay, yeah. Right, so now we are ready to start the second part of the workshop, which will lead you until the end, yeah. And that's the part about how to use blockr, but as a developer. Before was more using the different blocks, but as we see, at some point you reach the limit where you would need to develop new features. You find a new interesting package, you would like to create a block around that. So that's what we are going to see in that part. If you are not a developer, that's also interesting to see how it works, even though you don't understand all technical details behind. I tried to make the exercise as simple as possible, but also as realistic as possible, so you can all follow the big lines. Yeah. So the idea at the end of the day is to create your own block supermarket. So you want to provide new products regularly and give new possibility to the end users. So we'll have to zoom a bit on the blocks and fields. So if you remember, the processing unit is a block, and the block can import data, can transform data, and can also do some visualization. And these blocks, what makes them interactive is what you have inside. And what's inside, these are, I don't know if I mentioned that, but these are called fields. And fields, you can see them as ingredients. The blocks are instructions and fields are ingredients. So you mix two ingredients together, you get your block. And then if you put all the blocks end by end, that's the recipe. So that's like when you prepare some meal. So a field has a value. It can have some other metadata like a title, a description, some status if it's active or if it's not active. Like these are details, you don't really need to worry too much. And then those fields, when they are combined, they basically allow to create an expression. This expression, for instance, would be data. Then you pipe them into the select function from dplyr, and then you select the column. So that will be the expression. And then when you evaluate the expression, then you get a result. You pass this result to the next block, and so on. So the question now is, how do you code-wise, how do you control how a data block is going to behave, how a transfer block is going to behave, and how visualization blocks are going to behave? We are going to see that in few slides, but essentially it's controlled with class, because blockr is based with S3, the S3 concept in R, which allows you to customize the behavior of the different parts of the code. So if I take one of the simplest block we have, which consists in selecting some data, so we first create what we call a constructor. And because it's a constructor, good practice is to say that's new underscore, and then you write what it's doing. So that would be select block, for instance. But if you want to make it more user-friendly, as I said before, because if you don't know ggplot, if you say new geom point and nobody knows what is a geom point for the end users, that's not super nice. So the name will depend on you, really what you want to expose to the end users. And then you will have some parameters to your function. Something you want to expose to the select block is obviously the number of preselected columns you want to have, for instance. And the next part, that's creating interactivity. So we have a tiny function here which allows us to get all the column names, right? So that's the data. These are data coming from the previous block, and then you get all the call names here. So that's useful because then you will create the field, and the field will be a list, and each element of this list will be an input available in the interface. So the first one here is columns, and that's actually the only one. That's a new select field. So here you will recognize the shiny inspiration, right? Because ultimately it's not a surprise that the select field yields select input, or select as input, or as you like. And you will pass the columns, which is the parameter, the entry parameter. So by default, you have empty selection. And the choices, these are all possible columns from your data. So that's why we defined the all columns function here.
Yeah,
and then you
if I may, just to clarify, the all calls function that pardon, that we defined is because the blocks are reactive, isn't it? What we saw before. So if you imagine that this is your select block, so it takes some data, and then you can select which column. What we're creating here is a drop down where you can select which columns you want to select, and that will react based on the data that's passed above. And that's why we have a function, so that internally we can run and rerun that function. When the data above changes, we run the function and we're able to regenerate the choices. So you can hard code those choices if needs be, but in this case, we're for the fields, if the arguments of your fields are functions, then we call these functions passing it the data from above. And that's how you can do kind of reactive fields, if you like. I think I tried to clarify this, incidentally making it more confusing, but that was my attempt at
No, that's really clear actually. Yeah.
clarifying
I-
it.
I agree, it's clear as well. My only quick question is that function for the call names, it knows that there will be inside the rest of this function a reactive data frame to operate on, right? That's just being passed down by blockr.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
That's
Thank you.
the magic behind blockr. Yeah.
And I might as well add, since you said reactive data frame, maybe not, because that's the thing that we've done with blockr, at least at BMS, is it doesn't have to be a data frame. It can be anything you want, but it's whatever comes from the block above.
Okay, that's
I
duly
mean,
noted. Thank you.
But for a select block, yeah, you'd expect it to be data frame.
And if you were doing a plot, like John said, what you pass is a plot object, a ggplot, for instance. And from the ggplot, you can recover the data, right? So you wouldn't be accessing exactly the same way a plot object, a data frame, but that's that's how we make everything reactive. Yeah, and you don't need to hard code the choices.
Okay, and I'll ask you one question from the chat, David. Jeremy is asking, is the new select field a new block function comes from the blockr library?
The new select field, yeah, it
Mm.
comes from the blockr core. New block comes from the core too. Yeah.
So new block is really well, I don't know, it's the core of everything we'll do here. So that's exported from the library, from blockr itself. New select field, indeed, and there's a number of different kinds of fields that you can have. New select field is just one of them, but you also have the ability to define new custom fields. If there are new types of inputs that you want to bring in, you can define your own custom fields as well. And I
We
think,
have
sorry, I think because we had another question that we missed earlier on about the filter block. I don't know if you remember how it looks like, but on the filter block, you can't filter in. And someone was asking as to whether it was going to be added. The percent, you know, the infix in operator.
yeah, the filter, the way we implemented it, that's like an opinionated way, but you have multiple ways because you could also have additive filters and so on, right? So filter is much more complex than select because once you selected the columns, then you have to select the values, and then you can combine the filters together, and yeah, that's much more complex. And we might actually create multiple, like different filter functions, yeah, because there
I
won't
think
be like a
we did.
single there won't be a single filter that really rules everything.
No, we did. We had a package internally where we had like a filter in block specifically for that somewhere, I think. So that's kind of basically, it sounds like a cop out, but it's kind of our answers to a lot of things. And so you can hopefully define your own blocks with your own logic. And hopefully in this section, we'll discover how to demystify it, and it becomes a bit easier for you to, when you see something there isn't, it's easy for you to add it to blockr. Well, hopefully. That's our claim at least.
Okay, yeah. So thanks for the precision. That's important actually. So yeah, there is obviously the documentation of the package, right? You have also developer guides, how to create a new block, how to create fields, like John mentioned, because you can also customize fields. That's not something we are going to see today about fields, but there is a vignette about that, how you can create a slider thing, I think, something like that. So yeah, that's covered in the documentation. And then these fields, you pass them in the new block function in the fields parameter, and that's it. The next step is then to create the expression. Oh, here there is a bit of complexity because you will see the something quote. If you don't know metaprogramming, it will prevent to evaluate this expression too early here in this function because we want to evaluate later. So essentially what you put in the quote is the operation you want to perform. So because it's a select block, I want to use the dplayer function select. And another notation, if I can say, is you pass the fields with dot brackets. Under the hood, this is used by another metaprogramming function, which is called bquote, which will substitute all the elements having the dots in a given expression. So bquote is a kind of more precise substitute, more precise than the substitute function, but that's very technical and that's really not you have to retain from this workshop. What you have to retain is to put your expression within quote here and call in any field with dot with the field name here. So it's columns, so you pass dot columns. And then you pass this expression inside the exp parameter of the new block. And the next thing, which is actually the last one here, how do you say, how do we want to control the block behavior, how it looks like? Because if you remember, for instance, for data blocks, you have these kind of little things on the top, which shows, the number of rows, the number of columns, but that's something you don't have for the plots. And because how do we achieve that, right? We do that with adding some custom class. So here I give it a class select block, which will provide an ID to the block. And then the last class is really what is important. That's a transform block. And blockr knows about transform blocks. We wrote some server function for transform blocks. We wrote server functions for data blocks also, for plot blocks. So you don't have to write your own logic to control the block behavior. So here you just want to say, yeah, this is a transform block, and then blockr takes care of creating all the logic for you. Then you have an optional parameter like the dot dot dot, where you can pass extra parameters. So here there are not so much right now, but maybe the most outstanding you already see in the exercise. So you have blocks where you can submit. So you have, if you remember about the filter, I can go back to the first exercise, adding some data and then adding a filter on top of that. The filter block doesn't evaluate right now because you need first to fix the different problems here. But then you need to press on run, and that's something you can control with by passing submit. So you pass submit equal false if you don't want to have a submit button, and then the filter will automatically calculate whatever expression you have. If you pass submit equal true, then you will get a submit button. So in the end, you don't get much line of code, only 16 line of code, right? With a bit of magic to take into account the change in data, right? To make the field dynamic. Passing the expression with the fields, giving the right class, and then you are good to go to have your select block.
And
So
just to
come up.
point about one of the reasons that we use that expression on the code is really to support code export. So, when we're working in the pharma industry, a lot of times what happens is the clinicians looking at plots and then later they want to use that plot externally. So what that means is somebody needs to validate it. So it has to be reproducible. Because of this, then if you write it in this way, the code is always exportable. You can save it somewhere else. You can run it independent of blockr. It doesn't have blockr dependencies. And that way you have a path to validation of those outputs.
Thanks, Karma. Yeah. So today's mission is to create a new block, a pharma-related block. So we are going to use the cardinal package. And we just selected one example. It's the one which makes GT summary table, which you can see here. So that's an iframe of the Cardinal website, and we want to create a block that essentially produce this GT summary output. So you actually have multiple technologies. You can have tplayer, GT summary. So we are going to use the GT summary one. Before moving to the exercise, so I can explain you how it works. Before we were playing with the playground here. Now we need to go to Posit Cloud. You should have the link, and I checked in the list here. There are already quite a lot of projects, which probably mean you were able to create the project. The only thing is between Karma, John, and myself, I think we are only one person able to connect to the project at the same time, because we are administrator and we are, yeah,
Okay.
it's not a
Is
copy
there-
of the project. Yeah, we really access the main project here.
Okay, I was going to ask if you could make copies of projects like
Yeah.
I've done in the past.
I couldn't find, I'm not using Posit Cloud really regularly, to be
Okay.
Okay,
honest.
so I'll try and make a copy for myself. Because I think the exercise that's coming, I mean, we can see how it goes, but there's a lot to write. So I was wondering if we can maybe do it like we did the previous one. I don't know if we had to kind of do it together with the audience, but there's a lot of code to write on these.
Yeah, there is a bit of code. Yeah, let's see.
Okay, yeah, we can try that. Let's just try that and see.
Or we could also, I don't know, having a code along with Eric. I don't know if you wanna share your screen, then you would need the slides also. You would need the project, and we can walk you through the different steps.
Sure. Yep.
That's another
Good idea, I
possibility.
think.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do
Yeah.
like that.
Let's do that. Yep. Let me get my bits organized here. Zoom in here a bit. Yep. Okay, create new blocks. Okay, so we're gonna go to if you're following along in the workshop, if you have this open, like as David said, it's a package structure. So we're gonna go in the R subdirectory and open the cardinal.r file here, and then we're gonna see the new cardinal block, and we're gonna create a field for each parameter that we have here. And I assume by parameters, you're talking about these here, the ID var, arm var. And so we're going to go to this fields list here, and then we're going to do for the most of the other parameters, we're going to do new select field, I believe. And then voices. Now, should these be named here?
They should be
Like
named.
Yeah.
Yeah.
ID var, okay. So if you're following along, we've named ID var. Now we're gonna go to arm var, and again, this is another string, so we can just, I believe, simply
Yeah,
copy.
but you just want to change in the new field. You pass values and choices. So you have to pass what what the value will be. I think
Okay.
the value will be probably the default that we pass to the argument. So it will be technically ID var, I think. That's what,
Okay.
or yeah,
Alright.
indeed, you could have put the subject ID, and then the choices is that function we've created there again, the old calls function.
Yep. Good catch. Good catch.
And now you can indeed do some copy pasting for the others.
And you
Alright.
wanna have, I guess, No, sorry, not
No,
multiple.
no, no, it's all good.
Yeah.
Yep,
And
so
here
we're
we
just
have the
gonna
arm.
arm var, and then we're gonna do next one. Whoops, we'll do say FL var. Whoops, I can't type. I'm sure there's even more clever ways of doing this, but works
No,
for a
no, they're,
workshop.
they're doing everything right so far.
Okay, good deal, good deal. Do pref bar.
Copy paste. The copy pasting is not always wrong, you know. I mean,
Yeah, of course, as you both know, when I do this live on my live streams, things happen. But yes, counts. And this is where we got a Boolean field. So we're gonna do
Indeed.
new switch field. And then show counts. Now this one I don't need all cows for this, do I?
You don't.
No,
That's the
no,
only thing you
because
need.
yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, so we have completed that. So now we're in a new block, and then fields, I believe we just simply fields again. Am I
Mhm.
correct
Yeah.
there? All
Yes.
right. And that, I believe, is exercise 1, or should I move on to this?
No, I
That's
think that's
very
right.
good. And there is like a tiny subtlety. So if you would run the block like that, the names in the UI would appear like ID underscore var.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to customize the name which appears next to the inputs, like the labels, you have a title parameter to the field. When you call new select field, you can add a title.
Oh,
And you
interesting.
can pass the name you like to make it a bit nicer.
Something like that, huh?
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. I'll just do a couple of these just for completeness. And this one we could do select maybe treatment arm variable. That'll resonate for the user. Okay, perfect. So you each of these select new select fields also has a title argument. That all of them do? Like does the new switch field also have a title argument?
Yeah, they all do.
Yeah, they do.
They all
They
do.
all.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Yep. Yep, that's always a good UX enhancement, like you said, to be clear to the user. Okay, perfect. So, all right. I think I've got that one complete.
Yes. Perfect.
Yep, looks like according to the slide, I'm on the solution here. I can go ahead and put that on the screen here so we can see that together. Whoops, I went too far. All right, go back here. Yep, so the solution was, as you said, David, we have the all calls function to create in essence, the placeholder for getting those dynamically. And then as I was filling out myself, I used the new select field for the majority of these with the name of the variable, the all calls as the convenience, and then, like you said, each of the title ID marks. So looking good. Okay.
Cool.
So now we've got to move. Whoops, I went. Oh,
Cheating.
I am cheating. No, I'm nasty. I'm nasty to all of you. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back. I'm not going to cheat this time. All right. So now we need to create new blocks going into this expression here. This one is maybe going to be a little more involved to start with. So in the quote here, I need to put, we already filled the fields here. And then at this point, we need to do that syntax for the filtering or the column selection. Is that correct?
Here you simply want
No,
to.
yeah, we forget to put the documentation or something for the function we're trying to use from Cardinal. Maybe you can do that if you don't mind. That'd be useful. If
Yeah,
you,
let's go see what Cardinal has. Yep.
it's in a Cardinal package in here. And what we want to do is the 09 table. I think we had make table 09 GT sum. Is that the one we picked?
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Yeah.
And essentially here are the arguments. You can see some, we don't have all of them in our example here, but you can see the ID var,
Okay,
the arm
so
var.
so
we need to-
basically we're gonna feed in the name of the function we want to run in here. Is that my understanding here?
Mhm.
Indeed.
And then we're gonna feed in. Now this is ADA, but of course we got data here, right? So that should be data passing into it.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna keep the alt counts df as no. And I'm gonna say show call counts equal show call counts. That sound right?
And there you will need the little magic with the dot brackets.
Oh,
Be-
yes, okay.
Yeah, for the
So,
field. Yeah.
uh,
So you will do dot brackets and show call counts inside the.
now should it be twice like this or should it just be once?
It should be once. Yeah. The beginning should be
Okay,
removed. Yeah.
all right.
So you don't need the external brackets too. Yeah. Just
Oh,
dot
right, yep.
brackets. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm getting the hang of this. I did put a link in the chat earlier. This has some semblance of dplyr non-standard evaluation or quasi quotation. It's slightly different in the syntax, but that I'm getting the gist of it. So now we got the ID var, and that means we're going to
A
do
small
the
typo in the show counts. Show
Oh,
call
yeah, right.
counts.
Yep, cal counts. Yep, good catch. And this will be now the dot bracket, and then this is ID var. And then we're going to repeat arm var, go arm var. Then we've got SAFL var. Yep, use complete. All right, let's see if I'm missing. We need the pref var. Yep. All right, and I believe the rest are just not necessary for us. So
Yeah,
how
that's
the
correct.
all right. So now let's check our solution and see if we got that right here. Yes, it is. So you saw I was
Sorry.
fumbling my way the first time, but this is the right notation now for the injection of the function value as the parameter here.
Yeah, it looks odd at first. It's actually quite, you get used to it quite quickly. And it's pretty neat how it works. It's very,
Yeah, it is like I said, a little bit different than the syntax I'm using like from dplyr when I would do the injection with like rlang operators
yeah,
in like a Shiny app. But I think once you get the hang of it, it sounds like you can pick it up pretty
yeah,
quickly.
because what it actually will do here, and we'll see hopefully soon when we use that block that you're creating there. But instead of say ID, these dot parentheses ID var, the ID var there, which corresponds to that dropdown we have, which should have the subject ID selected. In the code that we generate, you'll have ID var equals u subject e in a string. It's doing that kind of substitution. So it's pretty neat. We'll see that in a minute. It's well worth the learning that bit of syntax.
Great. Okay, and again, feel free to put questions in the chat as we're going through. But with that, we'll move on to the next portion of it. So, do you want me to keep sharing? Or do you want to take over? What would you like to do?
Yeah, I will take the
Take back
presentation
over?
again, and
Sounds
then I
good.
will.
Sounds good. Yep.
Well, you were doing fine, Eric. Felt like you could have represented the rest. Yeah.
I'm a little rusty with my live coding skills, if you couldn't tell.
So that's the short one. What I was mentioning before about the class, that blockr is based with S3, right? The S3 object-oriented system for R. And then typically what we do for a given function, we have a generic, and then we have specific methods for data blocks, for transform block, and plot blocks. And here I just take a subset of something we get for the output, you know, to if you remember the table you see in a select block at the end. So you have a method for that. So server output dot block. So any element having the block class will inherit from that. And then we use DT under the hood, and then we pass the result in the data table function, and that does the job. And on the UI side, we use the data table output. So in the following, we will be using GT summaries, so you may imagine that we can't really use DT anymore. So that kind of has importance. Yeah, that's how typically you can really completely customize blockr if you really want to. And then, yeah, that's up to you again, Eric. You can take the presentation for exercise 3.
Okay. All right. I'm always now nervous. You all are putting me putting me through the paces here, but this is good. I love being able to learn with all of you out loud, as they say. So, building upon what David said, our exercise 3 is now we're going to create new blocks by giving it the like the slides say here, the correct classes. But keep in mind this is not an entry point block, so we don't need a data block class. I assume that's already being taken care of. So let's see what we can do here.
What you'll need here is essentially, well, technically, we need a new class, right? We need to define a new class for our cardinal block here because it works a bit differently from the other blocks that we have. It doesn't exactly transform data because it produces this table. And as you've seen before in all the blocks that we used, we expect a data frame as output, and that's why I use DT to nicely display that output. But that won't work here. We're using GT. So what we essentially need, I think, if I remember correctly, in this part of the exercise is you define a custom class, but actually there's a bit of a hint below because we
says
have cardinal 09 block. I don't know if you can see it on your line 38. We already have.
oh sure, yeah, okay, yep, cardinal 09 block. So let's see what we.
But that would be as a string. So you put that in quotes so that
Oh right,
we
yep,
give a new
mhm.
class to our block.
And you don't need the block class because it's provided by new block. When you call new block, it's automatically adding the block class.
No,
Oh.
you're good. You were good. No, we're doing fine. You're doing
Okay,
just fine.
yep. So now we have that going here. And do I need to feed it anything else?
I don't think at this step you need to.
Okay. All right. We will go ahead and save that and see if I got that right. Oh, sure enough. Yep. And
Yeah.
oh, there's a nuance here. Maybe you're going to get to this. You could have more than one class in here, or is it only one class all each time?
Multiple. You can have
Multiple.
multiple class, yeah, because here it's not a transform block, but if it was a transform block, you could add the transform block class.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's the system of class and inheritance. So maybe you want to create a new transform block that's like a new custom filter that applies a custom filter that you've just come up with. Well, you don't want to rewrite plenty of functions that pertain to the transformation of a block. You just want to customize one or two, the display of some things. So for that, you can add the existing transform block class that we have, which will load up all of this default behavior. But then give it its own unique class in addition to that, so that you can modify a handful of those behaviors and you don't have to rewrite a lot of the code. It's a bit of a poor explanation, but it's pretty much how it works.
Yeah, and there are some great resources online, even just with
Mm.
class structures with S3 in particular. There's been a lot of good resources in previous workshops, even shared on that alone. So we'll make sure to put those in the recording links after we post this on our YouTube channel. But I believe then the next step is to see if this actually works, if I am guessing correctly, and we need to now test our block.
So what you will need to do first is to comment out some piece of code in the project, like the generate server cardinal block, the UI output, and the server output.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because I put them here for the next slide, because you will need them, but the idea is to see what happens if you don't define those methods.
Got it. Okay. So now we've got that commented out. And so just like with typical package development, there are multiple ways to load this in. We're going to go back to the slide here. We're going to go ahead and copy all of this. For the old timers like me, you might do DevTools load all, but it's all very similar. I've been around too much, guys. Okay, so we're gonna load this.
Oh,
And
no, I got that. It's fine.
oh, okay. Yep. So let's go ahead and install those. Hopefully
Just hit
let's.
one, I think it
Yep.
will work. Yeah, it's quick.
Yeah. Luckily these aren't too bad. I was That's another story for another time. This app I was doing for our pharma had to recompile the DuckDB package in a good like 25 minutes from source. So you don't like that, folks. That's why you like the binary versions of packages. All right. So got that going. So now let's go ahead and try this again and see what happens. Doing something. Okay, it's loading. Hopefully you're seeing that on the screen here. Whoa, okay. This is just like my live streams. It never works right the first time. So we have
But
an
that's how it
error.
should. You should get an error that's expected here.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's
So it's
different than
saying,
what.
So here it says basically you have a block,
Yeah.
but you don't have a server method for the block because we have generate server for transform block, for data blocks, and for plot blocks, but not for cardinal block. So now what you can do, Eric, is go back in the code and uncomment the first line you commented, the one with generate
okay,
server.
the
Yeah.
generate server block. Yep.
And here, what we would have to do really, theoretically, is to write a custom server function for this thing, because you don't need all the pieces from the transform block. We don't need the lines of columns, the rows, because that doesn't produce data, right? That just produce a table. But we can do as if it was a transform block and reuse that function just to not to write all the code. And then you can reload everything and see if
All right.
it's
Let's
working.
see if that does the trick. Yes. Okay. I'm starting to get the hang of this. All right. Another shot. Uh-oh. Looks like we're still getting that similar error here. Error in use method, no applicable method for generate server. Did I not comment out something else or?
Do you not have to? Let me try and send something to you. I think you have to come. Yeah, don't you have to add the Roxygen comment and document it
Yeah, probably.
and import blockr?
Oh, is that you mean for this function up here?
No, for the one you have downstairs, down there. Let me give me 1 minute.
Okay. And I assume we don't need a complete exercise 4 to do this, right? I'll keep an eye out for your message there on that.
Yeah, wait. We shouldn't reuse the transform block.
I'll just make sure it wasn't my session not loading everything right the first time. I'll just run it one more time just to make sure it wasn't a session issue. Let's give it a shot. Yep, okay.
I
Same
think
error.
it's I just sent that to you via
Okay,
via
thank
the
you.
Zoom.
Yep.
Sorry, I think
Let me go.
it's just is you put it right above there, yeah, exactly there. It's a
Okay,
quirk
okay.
of writing packages in R. When you define extend or overwrite methods from one package to the other, you kind of need these. So I think now you can try to load it again like that, but I suspect you might need to document it.
Actually, yeah, let's go with my muscle memory here. Yep. Dev tools document. Yep. There are ways to do this in RStudio as well. I'm a command
Yeah.
line person. All right, so let's go ahead
I
and
think
run
we
it
should
again.
also add that this type of thing you typically almost never need to do in blockr. The reason that you
Yeah, yeah.
is if you're trying to do something that it's not creating a data or not a plot. So this is why it's got a custom one. But if you're doing like a data transformation block, you only really need the first part of the code.
Okay, now we're
Okay.
getting a shiny error saying the data must be either a matrix or a data frame. It cannot be a table tree.
So that is that was expected actually. That's
Yeah,
the
this
error.
one.
That's
That was the error we
the
were supposed to get. Okay.
that's the error you're supposed to get.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let me show that back on the screen here in case others. Oh, I may have to run it again. I closed it, but I will go ahead and run that again for those that didn't see that. So while it did try to render and it got there, but yeah, this is what we're talking about here. Okay, so what do we need to do to
What you can
solve
do
this?
here is in the top right, you have the little caret and you can expand the stack. So in the top, yeah, when you hover, it appears. And now you can see that you have the data block, but then the block below that is the block you just created. With the default values, with the select input, and you can see the switch input at the bottom. But the problem we have now is, as you've seen before, for instance, if you expand the block above the data block, you will see normally here you have a CADAE, your adverse event data set.
Right.
But as a data frame, and it renders nicely with DT, but now below what we're trying to do is create a GT summary table. And it's a bit like in Shiny, if you're trying to use, render DT and pass it an object that's not a data frame, it's going to error. And that's the error we're getting there. And again, as Karma said, it's really going quite deep with how much you can extend blockr here. In most cases, you really don't need to do that. But that's the next exercise now. That at the bottom, we need to uncomment the code that David made you comment, and then it should render nicely, I believe.
Okay, so let's add some. Okay, so I think we were just. This is kind of where you're just. Oh, we already took care of this part, and then, as we said, oh, okay, maybe I'm jumping the gun here. Yeah, let's go back to the
We made you comment these lines. They need to be
Yep.
uncommented, and I think we need
Yep.
to. I'll try and help you to create those the same comments I created above. Roxygen
sure.
comment, because we need to again export that. So you need mainly export and method.
Got it. All right. So then,
But that's really just pure, our stuff. Yeah, our
Yep.
package related.
yeah. And then this is
A
the
UI
method
output
way
block.
output block. Yep. So it's basically the same function name. Cardinal 09. Block.
But
Okay.
yeah, instead of the dot, you have a space. So it specifies
yes.
the name of the method and then the object in which to
Very
execute
good.
it.
Very good. Okay. So then we're just going to change that here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. All right. I'm getting the hang of this. Okay. Server output.
Exactly
Okay.
like that. And now normally if you document and rerun that, we should be good again.
Yep. All right. Let's give this a try.
What do we have? No applicable method group vars. Yes, because I think we have another issue. We have another issue. I think I know what it is.
Okay.
I think I know what it is.
All right. All right. Let's see. No other helpful info here, it looks like.
Maybe actually just for
Oh, maybe there is could I see the block function on the top? If you can scroll down a bit. Yeah, it's
yeah,
make
it's not
table
mentioned.
09 GT sum. Yeah, we
Yeah.
are not using the right function. Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah.
All right.
So the
But
table tree, I think, is something by default R tables. I think that's why we had this table tree. I think that are
Okay, let's see if that did the trick. All right, yeah, we have a table
We've
here.
got a table.
Success. Somehow I was able to fumble my way through that at the end there. But okay, now we're seeing the value of this, right? We've got our data block here that now is basically, if you want to look at it, you can in this view here and select it. But then here we've got our four fields, and you notice I didn't change the title of these two, so hence exactly what David and John were saying. You probably want to change those, but now we can certainly
Can you toggle the switch input to see?
exactly, yep, and there it is. So it's toggling those totals away. So
Then what you can do on top of that, now that you have it untoggled, for example, which was in the default, is to copy the code from the top right. You copy the code for the whole stack. That would be just that block, just that last block, and it shows the code that's been generated.
yes, it does.
And
So we got
that's
make table 09 GT sum as if in another R session, provide you have the data loaded in memory, you could run this and reproduce this exact table.
well, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, exactly. So we're able to, and you see that it's substituted. So show code counts now is equals to false, where you had it default to true. So that's where the substitution
Right.
magic kind of happens.
And yeah, this piece right here, we've seen attempts at doing this in a lot of the pharmaceutical type Shiny applications when it comes to getting a reproducible script based on what the user did in the app. We've seen, of course, Shiny Meta attempt this, and they've had some success there. We've seen others kind of build their own solution, like I did years ago before Joe Chang set me straight on my mishaps for what I was doing. So this is very interesting to see this.
This was well, I think it was a good idea from Karma to be able to generate because now we only generate the code that's in your expression and only the code that is strictly necessary to produce your output. And so we don't have any shiny in the code that's necessary for you to reproduce that. And that's what's actually pretty handy for if you want to generate stuff that you can eventually validate, because now you don't have to validate all the dependencies of blockr. Nothing is in there. You only generate the code.
Yeah,
So
and obviously this example is sensitive to the type of data you're selecting because
the pref var, you have to select the appropriate. I don't know if you can select something else. I'm not too familiar with these.
I did the wrong
It
one, but yeah,
it might do
I get the
something
idea.
that's a bit
Yep. I get the idea. Okay, very good, very good. Well, we figured it out, and I broke it again when I selected the wrong column. So you do have to be careful.
No, we could again go further with that, but in your old columns function, it returns all the columns, and I think that's where
Exactly.
we've done that in the past, where it returns only the numeric columns maybe, or only the factors, because I think that's what was happening there when you select something that was not a categorical variable, and so it kind of broke the table.
Yeah, you can, and from lines like 8, 9 onwards, you can write whatever pre-processing function you need, or like, to make it so that what you're passing through isn't going to throw an error.
Yep. So that's where, as a developer, you got to think about, just like with Shiny development, what is the user going to try and click on? What do you want them to see and what you don't want them to see? So yeah, you're getting a lot of nice dynamically generated elements here, but there's still a little bit of onus on you to make sure they don't kind of harm themselves, so to speak, with those kind of situations. So yeah, that's a great point. Great. All right.
Thank you very much for being our guinea pig there,
Oh,
Eric.
my pleasure. It's always fun to learn on the fly here.
And well, no, thank you. You've been very kind to
That's
do
not
that for us.
over, actually. Yeah, there is a remaining exercise if you
Oh, we
have.
got more. Oh, okay, okay.
But I need to introduce the two next slides, and then we have
Sure.
the last exercise. Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't mean to ruin your Friday, Eric. Sorry.
I get to talk to all of you. This is a happy Friday. Don't worry about that.
Okay, so we created the block constructor. We produced some functions to make it having a server function rendering correctly. Something we didn't do yet is try to start from an empty stack and be able to add this block on the fly. And that's currently not possible because of what follows. So how do we make custom blocks available to users? There is an extra object in blockr. So there are the stacks, the workspace, the blocks, the fields. And now there is something else. It's called the registry. And the registry that corresponds to the block supermarket I was referring to before. So blockr has an internal registry where it keeps tracks of all the blocks you have within a package, including the core. So within the registry, each block has a name, description, some classes, what input it takes. So if it's a data block, you don't have input. If it's a transform block, it will take a data frame as input or any other data we may want to support in the future. It will have output. It can return a data frame. It can return a ggplot or whatever. And then the package where it comes from, if it's from the core, if it's from an extension. So John developed blockr.ggplot2, blockr.eshard4r, even though I don't think we updated eshard4r recently. Yeah, ggplot2 is updated, but yeah, what you have to keep in mind is when you do library blockr ggplot2, all the registry combine together, and then all the blocks become available to the end user. So all in all, you get your supermarket. And now, Eric, we need you again for the last exercise, which will be, yeah.
Sorry, if I may just maybe to try and clarify again. So the idea is you've created this block that you have now, the new Cardinal 09 block, right? But it lives in your package, but the blockr ecosystem is not aware of its existence, if you like. So you've seen in the exercise that we did in the section before our break, where you click the plus sign to bring up this list of blocks that you can add. Well, you need to essentially, that's what we have with the register. You need to announce that this block exists to blockr. And once you do that, it will appear in this list, because right now blockr cannot guess that this new block you've created exists somewhere in your R environment. So what we're going to do is just simply, it is very, very straightforward, is to register it with blockr. So you tell blockr that your new block exists, essentially.
All
And
right.
it's fairly straightforward, I think. If you jump to the code, David has prepared something.
Well, let's do that.
There. The last two replace strings.
Okay, so we need to, as they were saying, we have register cardinal blocks, and this is a function associated with your package itself. So now the constructor, I believe, is going to be this one here.
Exactly. No, just the name of the function.
That's the name of it. Yep. Sorry, my
Yeah.
mouse was angry with
No,
me.
it's
Okay,
fine.
let's put it in there. And then this
Is
is
it
where,
do we pass that as a string, David?
It
or
should,
do we need,
no, it's the constructor name. Yeah,
but not as a string, correct?
Not as a string,
not as a
right?
string.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, as an
Now,
object like this.
now this is where I can put, does it have to be the actual name of that same
No.
name, or can it be anything I want?
As the display name. So this is the
Display
name
name.
as it will be displayed. So it doesn't have to match. And generally we try and be a bit more, something a bit more
Sure. Yeah.
readable.
Okay.
And description, I think it displays somewhere on hover or something with a bit more information.
All right, that's good enough for me. And then this is where, if I had to guess, this is also going to be the classes that we created, which I believe are here.
No, it's just that last one. So when you create new block, you pass the new class, which is cardinal 09 block.
You're right. You're right. You're right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. But then do we need the other ones as well, or is this good enough?
No, just that one. We defined it. So your new block object, you only pass that as class, so you're good with that. And
Okay,
input
now-
output, maybe it needs a word of introduction. I don't know if David wants to cover that.
The input is quite simple. It's what the block takes as input data. So here it will be a data.frame, a data frame.
So you've seen before how when we did the exercise in the previous session, if you had an empty stack and you click the plus sign, only what we call the data blocks, the blocks that contain or generate data were listed. And then after that, when you click the plus sign again, you had what we call the transform block and the visualization blocks. And that's essentially why we have this input output, so that we know what blocks fit together, if you like. So it's like if you imagine puzzle pieces, they don't all connect well, but if your block expects a data frame, we say that as an input, it takes a data frame. And so exactly like this. And now when blockr works, it knows what to display and how to connect those blocks, and whether, it knows rather whether they can be connected. For instance, now if I have my own block that returns a list, it won't appear on your when you have this block on screen.
Okay.
I think you were typing GT, which is correct essentially.
Yeah, because I was making sure that with these output blocks, we are rendering a GT and GT output like a typical Shiny app. So that seemed like the logical choice. And then I keep this as the default value, correct?
Yep.
All right. And then I believe you had some additional text to reload all this. So we'll go ahead and try this all again. And hopefully
you'll need something also. You'll need to go in the zzz.r
Oh, you're right. Yep.
file. Yeah, because you need to register when you load the package. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I admit, as a longtime R package author, I have not dealt with the ZZZ file very much, but I know it is quite important to get these assets loaded into memory when we construct packages. So that's all I need, right?
Well, then you need to call that function and you pass it. I don't know if you remember. So you call it with, and I don't know if you remember, but it takes this. Well, you can see on the screen, it takes the package.
Yeah.
And the package
Okay.
is
That's a good help.
actually
Yep.
passed their package name right from the.
Yep. So that works.
Just like that.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Let's give that a try and see if that did the trick.
Yeah, we can try with that. So essentially now, if you expand that, and you can delete the last block. Let's pretend you didn't have it there.
Right.
Now you can hit the plus in the top right at the stack, and hopefully we can see your block in there. If we didn't, if you scroll down a bit.
Yes, we do. That scared me for a second.
There we go.
Yep. That's a good note, everybody. You may have to scroll to see these. And there it is. It is right here, just as advertised. So.
And that we didn't test before, but you couldn't have done it before. Your block would, without that register, your block would not have appeared in that list, essentially. You can still use it, do whatever you want with it, but you wouldn't have appeared in that list.
So even though we're creating a custom package here, it still has to be registered with blockr's processing in order for the GUI to know that was an available choice. That's what
and you do that in that onload function that you saw in the previous file in the ZZZ. You have that onload function, which is a magical kind of R package function. And so now, if say you have this package of yours, which is called blockr.exercises, and if other people in your organization want to use it, they just have to install the package and call library blockr.exercises. and this block will be available to them. And when they click the plus sign, it will be there, etc. And you can, and that's basically how we create the blocks.
Yeah, this is extremely helpful, and I invite others to make sure you're checking out these exercises. It's the best way to learn, right? Is to learn by doing. Oh, that's interesting. You even have a diagnostic block output saying when I remove that second block initially. That's okay. That's nice too. Great.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. I promise this time I think it's good. We're done.
I made it through in one piece. I'm thrilled. So
You did.
You did very quickly too, yeah. So
This time at least. See you next year.
yeah, right. What are you gonna have in store for me next time around? Yeah. Awesome. Yep. So yeah, let's take it home here. Yeah.
yeah, and then it leads us to like about 5 minutes of conclusion. Yeah, the closing remarks, and then we can keep some time for questions before 5. So yeah, congrats for this workshop, and also congrats, Eric. You made it. Yeah, thanks so much for really accepting to do the exercise on the fly, because you didn't know you would be doing the exercise, and that's very nice. Yeah. So what's next for everyone? So blockr is like a collaborative effort. So if you're a developer, then if you're a end user, you can use blockr to create data analysis dashboards. You don't need to worry about coding. You can explore the documentation which you have on the blockr website. So you have the GitHub repository, then the website, and then the getting started splits between non-developers and developers. So if you are a developer, you can go here. If you are not a developer, you can go here. You have some kitchen sinks where you can play with a basic stack and with also a workspace. And then you can share these dashboards with your team to speed up data analysis. So we still have a lot of work on that. We are doing with Karma because in practice, yeah, it's quite complex. In the end, you may imagine having like hosting libraries of blocks, even stacks to make them reusable and create even subparts of dashboards in another dashboard, that's a bit how we called it blockr, right? If you played with Legos, yeah, you can assemble with Legos. You build a castle, you can reuse this castle in with another castle if you like, and that's what makes it powerful. If you're interested into developing and extending blockr, that's definitely possible. The first step is to install it from GitHub. It's not on cron yet, but it will be. You have the documentation, same as before, except that you can read all the developer guides from the data blocks to the registry. If you are interested, you get an overview of all the different functions, how you can create a plot block. So we try to do it step by step. You have Shiny Live demonstration within the package on website. And yeah, just enjoy creating blocks. And yeah, if you get any feedback for us, you can post issues on the blockr package. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll keep this open for a few until the time if you have questions online. But first, I just want to thank each of you immensely for walking us through what is a very new development, at least for many of us in the Shiny community, to be able to play with blockr. I'm really intrigued by where I can take it. And yes, I made it through the demo. So if I can do it, you all can do it too out there. So that's for sure. One housekeeping item that Anna's been kind enough to share in the chat. If you made it this far in the workshop, you can get yourself a Credly badge to have as recognition for going through the workshop. That's been linked in the chat here. We've had a lot of people take us up on that offer, so that's just have to fill out the little Google form there, and then you can have that registered for your account. I will admit I'm going to have a somewhat provocative question here, and feel free to take it or leave it, but I see this as blockr as another attempt to give us, Shiny developers, R enthusiasts, a way to kind of have the best of both worlds of Shiny itself and the designer type suites that we see, and I'll say it, in apps like Tableau and Power BI and things like that. Where do you see blockr eventually fitting into that picture in terms of, designing these apps effectively with this kind of interface as opposed to, say, the Teal approach, which most of the time it's taking reusable code or reusable packages in the Teal framework and then networking them together as like a cohesive app. That's kind of where do you see the blockr future in that world?
Maybe I could take this one. So Teal is awesome, right? So we use Teal a lot. And Teal's great when you have predefined questions, predefined analysis. blockr is great if you really don't know where you're going with your data. So there's often times where you really don't know what data source you're going to get. And that's why we have blockr. But the other thing is blockr is you can actually have it integrated with Teal. So you could have it within the Teal dashboard as another tab. So any existing Shiny apps you've got right now, if they're doing the jobs that you want for the, like planned analysis, that's fantastic. But if you have some portion of the analysis, which is, you want to keep it, you're not very sure, you need a bit of flexibility, you can put blockr into it.
Yeah, you give me some ideas to think about where I do have an application that's very sophisticated that does a lot of hybrid assimilation and multiplicity adjustments, and maybe at the end I'll let them have that data available, but then they could use blockr to determine how they want to present that to either themselves or to their teammates as they want to use this app to make a critical business decision. Where me, as the app author, don't necessarily have to know right away how they want to see it. I can give them that flexibility via blockr to kind of choose their own output summarization adventure. I just give them literally the blocks to do it. Is that a fair
Yeah,
statement?
absolutely, yeah. I mean, data processing is a big part, where like blockr could be really helpful. So it could be that, you've done the end part, right? So you've done the visualizations, but the data format is coming in different ways. And you can't really control like how the data format is coming, but you can at least allow you to massage it into the format that the rest of your dashboard accepts.
Excellent.
That's
Excellent.
just one. Yeah.
All right. I'll keep an eye on the chat here. I'm not seeing anything just yet other than the great kudos for the presentation. Just for my curiosity, sounds like blockr has been in development for quite a while now. Well, we heard a little bit about the genesis in the beginning, but sounds like a CRAN release is coming soon. And what are some of the kind of quick new features that you all are working on as you prepare for that eventual CRAN release?
So as we said, we are working on improving the way to communicate results between stacks to make it nicer than it was currently today. So that's the first objective. And then yeah, we have some cleaning to do in the code to make it. Particularly now we are investigating performances to make sure it can scale, right? So because ultimately each block is a module, right? Stacks, they are modules. And then you don't want, if you have like 10 stacks in your workspace, right? That's a lot of modules, and you want to make sure everything runs smoothly. Then we have the customization, the UI part. We didn't talk too much about that, but what we'd like to do in the end is really, if you want to have blockr with Bootstrap, that's fine. If you want to have blockr with material or whatever design you like, you should also be able to do that. But that's a bit on the side because we have like more pressing features at the moment.
Yeah, you made me think a fun project would be as that gets more robust. you released, I believe, a Shiny 386 theming package. Imagine you use blockr to create a retro-looking Shiny app. That would be fun.
That shouldn't be too hard actually because it's bootstrap based, so that should be
Oh, there you
actually
go.
easier than with another framework. Yeah.
Very good, very good. Well, yeah, I haven't seen anything new come on the chat, but of course, whenever I host these things, I want to make sure our audience knows where to follow each of you on your various technical adventures. So maybe we'll start with Karma. Where can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, sure. I think, I mean, I've got my, you would have to just email me
Okay.
at my BMS. It's probably the email that I check the most.
Okay. And John.
You can find me on plenty of places. I think if you really have a question, don't hesitate. LinkedIn, Twitter, and yeah, there's the other two main places. The email you can find on my website. Yeah, and sorry, I must say thank you to everyone for taking the time to attend our workshop.
Absolutely, yes. And David, where can people learn about your efforts?
Yeah, you like John, you can find me on LinkedIn, on my website. You can reach out to me by mail. And yeah, otherwise, thank you very much, everyone, for attending today. Thanks for John, Karma, to work on this project for a year. Every day you don't see it, but we lose hairs a bit to make to make people life easier. You know, it's not easy, but it's very interesting. Yeah, yeah. And special thanks to you, Eric, for the practice part today. Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
that was
thank
really
you.
awesome. Yeah.
my pleasure.
Thank
And
you, David, for putting together this whole workshop.
Yeah, this workshop is mostly the work of David. We're just TAs for David, Karma and I today. You put all of this
Just happy to
together.
be here.
you all are too humble. I know from experience the effort it takes to put one of these together.
No, really, it's David's work. We were discovering the slides with you today. Oh.
Yeah, so we'll make sure everybody watching the bookmark those resources are going to stay online. And of course, with Shiny Live, you get to do this no matter when after this workshop. That's the beauty of all this. So we have great fun. Honestly, when I do a workshop next time, I want to put Shiny Live at some way, shape, or form in that effort. Wonderful. Okay, well, we are at our time here, but again, thank you immensely, David, John, and Karma for giving us this wonderful, wonderful workshop today. And again, last chance to get your Credly badge if you haven't grabbed that already. But otherwise, there are other workshops going on right now if you want to tune in those. But otherwise, we hope you enjoyed the blockr workshop today, and we shall see you hopefully at our Pharma next time around. So
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
thank
very
you so
much.
Thank
much.
you. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Good night.